This is Carrie Johnson with the Iowa Department of Management. And the purpose of this webinar is to provide an overview of the county ag extension budgets, various pieces of the budget as far as tax levies available, etc., and the timeline. And then also provide a overview of the budget forms that are available and need to be used to complete the fiscal year 24 budget submission for ag extension districts. So we'll start out with a discussion of general budget information. First of all, I would recommend that you take a look and bookmark the DOM website here that we show you. And the reason being that this is our Ag Extension District resource page. So the information that you would be seeking to complete your budget, as well as the place to go to log into online system, will be found on this website here. One of the things you may have interest in that is displayed on the website is a listing of tax rate documents. So for each and every fiscal year, we provide an overview in an Excel format of the tax rates that are levied by each ag extension district. So if you want some historical information on tax rates, or you're interested in what other counties are charging for tax just for comparison purposes, this is an opportunity for you to pull down that information. And this is just an overview of what it actually looks like. Again, each and every ag extension district, the different tax rates that they used in that given year, as well as their valuation and the tax asking. So, the Department of Management's role in your budget process is to provide the forms, including, of course, the web based forms that you'll use, and we'll give you a highlight of, as well as instructions. We provide you with instruction documents and then technical assistance for your budget completion process. So, let's start out talking about your property tax levies that are available to you as an ag extension district. Levy limits and taxation limits for the Extension Education Fund depend on the population of your district and whether or not there has been a successful referendum authorizing the regular limits to be exceeded. And regarding that process, you would want to view Code of Iowa 176A10. To my knowledge, we have all ag extensions now having successfully passed this referendum. So just FYI, I'm sure that as you're listening to this, this is something that your county did a long time ago. But just if you want a little background on how that came to be, you can review that section of the code. The maximum tax does include both the property tax and utility replacement excise tax. So your tax asking in this case is the sum of utility excise tax and property tax. So it's what you enter as your requested dollars in the budget form. And of course, if at some point you passed a referendum and specified a lower limit, obviously this could go to referendum again. If that were the situation, it would be the lower limit then that passed at an election that would be applicable. So for fiscal 24, what I'm showing you here is the levy rate, so the tax rate, and the tax asking, the maximums for the different sets of population parameters for fiscal 24. Again, these ramp up slightly each year, so just sort of be aware of it. Based on your population, you're going to incrementally increase each year in your tax asking. So if you have any questions regarding the fiscal 24 limit, be sure to ask me. But those will also be displayed in your budget instructions. Another levy that is available to you is the unemployment compensation levy. Section 9631 of the Code of Iowa provides that political subdivisions can levy a tax to pay for the cost of unemployment benefits. And so that's either the cost of, you know, the payment of claims via unemployment or the cost to participate in the state unemployment program. Tort liability is another levy that is available to you. Chapter 670 authorizes the purchase of liability insurance, and the premiums for this insurance can be paid from the Extension Education Fund or a separate tax levy for tort liability if your Extension Education Fund is insufficient. If you are purchasing a package policy, again, only the tort liability piece can be paid from the tort liability levy. And here's just some examples of the different types of coverage that may be included. The levy can also be used to pay for the payment of a judgment or settlement that's within the scope of 670. So I want to provide an overview of a few changes that were made as a result of legislation, and that will be some changes that you see in this fiscal 24 budget. So as you look in the Department of Management budget system, you also have available to you different reports on the property valuation, within your county, statewide, other counties, etc. And some of those reports are listed by class of property, residential, commercial, industrial, etc. And so I do want to just share that House File 418 passed in the 2021 legislative session, and it eliminated the multi-residential class of property as a separate class, beginning with the January 1, 2022 assessments. So the January 1, 2022 assessments, valuation assessments, are what is used for your fiscal 24 budget. So when you're in there pulling valuations and looking at perhaps information for the 2022 assessment, you'll see that the Department of Management property class residential has been changed to a reserved class because it is no longer used. So with the 2022 filing by your county auditor evaluations, there is no longer a multi-residential class as a separate class. The properties are now reported within the residential class. And so this just shows you an example of a valuation report that reports value by class. And you'll see this would be the 2021 report, and it does include multi-residential. If you looked at the same report for the 2022, this would now be changed to a reserved line and would have no value reported in it. Business property tax replacement. So property owners used to receive an opportunity for a credit called the business property tax credit. Some legislation was put into place to change this from a credit on levied taxes to a reduction in valuation. It's actually a two-tiered valuation reduction on commercial, industrial, and railroad property. And that begins with this 2022 assessment and fiscal year 24 budgets. So instead of this being a credit that you receive from the state as a replacement of the loss on levied taxes, it's going to now be a replacement because it's actually a valuation reduction. So you'll receive two replacement payments. I'll talk about commercial and industrial next, but you're also going to receive this business property tax as a replacement revenue. Now, I will tell you this is the first year for this change, so it will be potentially difficult to estimate how much you would receive with this transition from the business property tax program from a credit to a replacement. So if you do budget, make sure to budget conservatively, and you would budget the business property tax replacement on the same line as the commercial and industrial replacement. You would list it under other non-tax revenue and replacements. So, commercial and industrial replacement, as I referred to earlier, is a program that's been in place for several years, and some legislation passed that is actually phasing that replacement piece out. So, you are currently receiving replacement payment, but the program itself is being phased out essentially by 1/8 each year. So, 1/8 of what you received in fiscal 22 in fiscal 23, so current year, and moving forward, that's going to reduce by an eighth until you receive zero in fiscal 30. Now, we have estimated future CNI replacements throughout the phase out, so you can go to the following link that's listed and pull up a spreadsheet that lists out a miscellaneous tab, and that would be the tab that you'd look for ag extension replacement. You'd find yourself on there, and it does, as I mentioned, list out the future year's payments as this program winds down. Budget deadline for the budget, of course, is March 15th. That is the same as in prior years, and it is a Wednesday this year, so right in the middle of the week. So budget deadline for fiscal 24 budgets is March 15th of 2023. When we talk about budgets, it is important to note that budgets are available to protest. Protesting a local government budget is covered under Code of Iowa 2427. Persons that are affected by the proposed budget, expenditure, or tax levy or any item thereof can appeal the budget. They can do so by filing a petition with the county auditor of the county in which the government is located. The deadline for that petition is March 25th. So essentially, 10 days after your budget deadline, your citizens have an opportunity to circulate a petition to protest what you submitted in your budget. So, the number of signatures that are required in that petition varies dependent on a calculation of who voted for the governor in the last election. So it's statutorily provided number of signatures. Again, this can happen. It is something to be aware of if a petition is filed with your county auditor and the signatures are valid and enough signatures are provided, then the county auditor would forward the protest documents to the State Appeal Board. The State Appeal Board is a 3-member body. It includes the Director of Department of Management, the Auditor of State, and the Treasurer of State. So those 3 folks serve as a State Appeal Board. If a petition to a budget is submitted, they would work with staff to schedule a local public hearing on the budget. So staff would go out and hold a local hearing to hear both sides of the issue. And citizens as well would have an opportunity to speak for or against the budget. Staff would gather all that information, bring that back to the State Appeal Board, and the State Appeal Board would review it and issue a decision on the budget protest. They can reduce the tax levy and the expenditures. Budget amendments are required during a year if there is an increase in the total estimated expenses for that for a particular fund. So if you find that you're say 3/4 into the year and your budget is going to exceed what you initially had budgeted in expenditures, you can amend that budget. The process for amendment is very similar to the process that is used to actually adopt the budget. They require the same notice and hearing procedures as were required in the adoption of the original budget. And keep in mind too that the amendment must be effective before you actually exceed your expenditure amounts. Budget amendments are also subject to protest. An amendment of a budget after May 31st, which is properly protested but without adequate time for that process that I discussed of a local hearing and the state appeal board to make a decision. If a budget is protested, you know, so late that we can't get all that done before the end of the fiscal year, then the budget amendment itself is void. The amendment form is actually found by logging onto the same online system that you use to adopt your budget and selecting amend on that current year budget. There's a button that says amend, essentially. And we do have a webinar on the amendment process available on your Ag Extension resources page that I mentioned earlier. And there also are instructions within the online amendment form itself. So let's take a few moments now to review the online budget system, what it looks like, and how it functions. The budget system for fiscal year 24 should be very similar if you have completed the budget in the last couple years. Login access should transfer from last year. For some reason it does not, please let me know. If someone needs access that does not have it, or if someone needs to be removed, please let me know. If you use the tab key during data entry, it does move between cells, which you can enter data into. And you can also use the arrow keys side to side and up and down. Ending fund balances are a calculated field within the system. They're produced by subtracting the sum of all expenditures from the sum of beginning balances and revenues. As you move within a page, the cell you are in will be highlighted and the row and column will show a green highlight just to help orient you within the forms. So to log into the system, again, you would go to that same resource page that we discussed earlier, and you would select the blue button titled Submit and Amend Budget. You do need an Enterprise ANA account ID in order to access the system. It's basically two steps. You need an account ID, and we need to give you access to your particular budget forms. So if you have a need or someone in your office has a need to access the budget system, please send me an email and I will send you the instructions on how to obtain an ANA account. Once you have obtained the ANA account, you would then email me back with your ANA account ID and the counties to which you need access. And then I can provide you with access. So it's a couple step process, but it would start with sending me an email and letting me know you need access. So when you're logged into the system, again, you will see the blue box and you will enter your account ID and password. You will see on the home screen this information here, and what this is telling you is whether or not any particular county has finished their valuations. So it's going to list each county and say, status filed over here or status valuations not filed, just meaning that the county auditor in the particular county has not completed the valuations process. Those are due by January 1, but again, this will tell you the status of the valuations in your county. To begin your budget, you again log in to the Enterprise ANA account ID. It's going to be right up here in the top left corner. And once you're logged in, you'll see the following screen. You'll see the budgets that are available to you. You'll see the new fiscal year 24 budget, as well as current year budget, of course, and any other recent budgets that are still in the system that are out there. So anything that has been completed using this new system would also be displayed. So again, to access the budget itself, you would click edit. So when you want to go ahead and start working in that fiscal year 24 budget, you would click edit. And as I mentioned earlier, if you need to amend your current year, you would click the amend beside that current year budget. So two separate processes, but you access both of them from the same screen. Once you're inside the budget, you will see tabs across the top that represent the different funds and different pages that must be completed. And just keep in mind that data entered on the tabs and the tax request entered on the adopted budget summary will go ahead and pull over automatically on the public hearing notice and the adopted budget summary tab. When you're in your different fund tabs, you'll notice that each fund tab has both a revenues page or tab and an expenditure page or tab. Keep in mind with budgets, you're statutorily required to enter 3 years of data. You enter the actual data from the year that is ended. You will enter your re-estimated year, so the current year that you're in, what you have adopted, reflecting any amendments or any major changes in revenues and expenditures that you have determined. And then you, of course, enter your budget year. And this is just an example of the tort liability fund, too, as well. Unemployment. And then this is what your um, sort of adopted budget summary looks like. You can see these white cells mean that these are not editable. They are pulling information from other pages or they are making a calculation. In the case of the summary up here, they're pulling information from your other completed pages. Valuations are pulled from our system once your county auditor has filed your local values, and tax rate is going to be a calculation based on your tax asking and the valuation in your area. So the only cell that you enter here is the blue cells, and that's where you input by fund your total tax asking for each and every fund. And of course, you would keep in mind those levy limits as they apply to your county. And then also make sure that if you do your levy limit, you take note of what the tax rate is so you don't um, exceed the required tax rate for your particular county. Once you're in the budget, you can check errors at any time, save. Of course, we recommend that you save often, and you can print. Once the 2022 valuations are filed by your county auditor, the valuation figures that you need to be in there will be populated for you automatically. Until valuations are filed, or if the county auditor unfiles values, you'll see a notice at the top of your budget forms just to let you know that your valuations are in an unfiled status and they may change. So just keep in mind, if you're seeing this notice, either you don't have valuation yet or your county auditor has submitted valuations, but for one reason or another has unfiled them to do some work in the system and, likely making a correction or some sort of change so you can be certain that there may be a change to the values that are showing. And if you see this yellow notification and you're not sure what's going on, you can certainly contact your county auditor. You can print the full budget at any time. You can also now print only the current tab that you're working in. Upon proposing the budget for publication, you can also go back at any time and print only the publication notice. We would highly recommend that you use Google Chrome, and you can select your local printer as your destination, or you can save to a PDF as your destination. Therefore, you can, print a hard copy or you can save off a PDF version to your machine. Again, supplementary details, you're going to enter your revenue and expense detail on the supplemental detail sheets on all those different tabs. And the data on those sheets will automatically total and be brought forward to the adopted budget summary and hearing tabs. If you want to include additional electronic or virtual information on your notice, there is a text box in the bottom of the public hearing tab to add that information. When you move through your budget, it is important that you check your errors. You cannot publish your budget if you have an error. So if you run your errors check and you see this red option come up, it's telling you that you do indeed have an error within your budget and you cannot move forward and publish it. If you run your errors check and you see the following green notification, of course, it's telling you that the system sees no errors in your budget. Keep in mind, this doesn't mean that your numbers are necessarily correct, but it does mean that you're not exceeding, for instance, your levy limits. You have completed the budget form itself. You're not missing any particular data. It's not a judgment on the content of your budget itself. When you are error free, you can publish your budget, and that will allow you to obtain the budget hearing notice that you have to publish in your newspaper. Again, you click propose publish. You get a screen to enter the date, time, and place for the hearing. And there is quite a bit of information allowed in this meeting location piece. So that's another option if you have some virtual information you want to include. So you would enter time, date, and place for the hearing and click propose. The system generates a notice again for you to print or save off to your system. And you can go back in at a later time and pull down that publication notice if you need to. So you publish your notice in your newspaper, you hold your hearing. Following the public hearing, your council can make any allowable revisions, and those include decreasing tax asking or expenditures. So you can always go lower as far as tax asking or expenditures than what you published in the newspaper, but you can not go higher than what you published. So if you hold your public hearing and the council decides to actually ask for, say, less tax dollars or expenditures than published, they can do so. You would go into the budget and return to draft, which just basically opens the budget up for edits. You make your changes as directed by the council and save again. You would propose and publish again, just to kind of move it through the process, but obviously you would not publish in the newspaper again because you're decreasing the amount that you're asking for. And then you're ready to adopt. And obviously, if the council didn't make any changes, you would just go back in and click adopt. You would just click adopt to proceed with the budget, and then you enter the adoption date and click the adopt button. Following the hearing and approval of your budget, you would file the following documents with the county auditor. You're going to file that proof of publication that your newspaper provides you after you've printed the publication in the newspaper, and you would also provide them with a signed adopted budget and supplementary pages. So your county auditor needs both of those things prior to their close of business on March 15th. If you have any questions as you're working through the budget process, please be sure to let me know. You can reach me by the email listed or my phone number. Thank you.